Welcome to the Spiritable podcast. My name is Luke.
I'm Richard, and I just got my master's degree in divinity.
Everyone has a different perspective, so we're bringing on all sorts of people from different walks of life, like Jewish, Buddhist, Christian, atheist, and more, to discuss the biggest spiritual and moral questions and how they see it in their philosophy.
Our goal is to find where we agree and disagree, and hopefully challenge ourselves to be better people in the process.
Together, we shall dive deeper and get weirder. All right, awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on our podcast. Yeah, I know it's been a little hectic getting you on, but we're here. We're out here.
So I got to ask, did you retrieve your phone and your wallet?
No, it was just my phone. It was my wallet. It was crazy because I was at Wawa. I was cleaning my vending machines because I bought some vending machines that I was trying to get out in the streets. And then I got to Wawa and my car was getting fixed at the mechanic. And I left my phone in the Uber, and the Uber guy left. So I'm in Wawa with all my clothes just wet and dirty, and like having a bucket and a trash bag full of stuff. So like I literally known how it felt to be like a homeless person because everybody was just looking at me. And I was pulling out my wallet like no guys, I got like some money and I'm okay, you know. So when I came back, I asked the manager at Wawa, "Have you seen a phone?" She's like, "Yeah, somebody dropped it off 10, 15 minutes ago." So luckily I got it back. Thank God. Nice. So. Yeah.
Jabril, is this normal Mohammed? Is this like classic?
This is every day.
This is every day.
This is every day. Welcome to the Young Muslim Podcast, guys.
I had to ask, what were you doing with vending machines? Is that part of your job? Like, do you restock vending machines?
No. So I actually, I was working for a high tech company out in Leesburg, Virginia. Jabril was working with me as well, but then on October 1st, we parted ways. I got let go, COVID, a whole bunch of other stuff.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So the podcast is what we've been doing for 3 years now, but Jabril and I have been friends since college, and we'll tell you more about that story and how this all started. So we have our business like Young and Muslim LLC, so that's what I'm doing. But on the side, I do like real estate, and now I just grab some vending machines and trying to get that going.
Sick.
Yeah.
All right. So off the bat, just before we started recording here, Rich and I were having a little bit of a debate. So my name is Luke, and this is Richard here. So which one of us looks more like your stereotypical Christian youth pastor?
Oh, it's definitely Richard.
Oh, yeah. Wait, is it because of the background? Is it because of the books?
Everything.
It's the whole package. It's the entire package.
Oh, God. I was thinking my glasses would give me an edge today.
No, if I stood up, you'd even see my tight pants too.
Oh man,
the classic youth pastor tight pants. No, they're just khakis.
Okay, what shoes are you rocking?
I'm at work, so
you got New Balances?
No, I can't wear sneakers to work, but I would be. Shame. You know, I would be. those white New Balances.
Got the black Mormon shoes on.
He's going around knocking the doors, preaching the good word.
Hey, not during COVID. I'm not.
Right.
Oh, someone in my congregation up here actually gave me a note that they got from a Jehovah's Witness who, because they can't knock on doors, they are just writing handwritten notes and putting them in people's mailboxes so that they have a COVID-friendly way of doing door-to-door Jehovah's Witness.
Wow.
Wow.
I was like, okay, yeah.
You wait until someone puts someone's email marketing. It'll be a wrap.
Oh, man. So in researching you guys, I went back and watched your first ever podcast. I went a real deep dive. Oof. And you guys were talking about a bunch of stuff.
Fair.
What do you mean that's not fair?
Remember our first attempt at podcasts?
Oh, no, it's true. But my question is pulled from that, where you guys were chatting about, you had like a sports entertainment business. You guys both played sports in college. So I'm wondering, who's better at soccer among you?
You know, that's a impossible question.
Why, are you defense, he's offense?
No, well, I play defense and he's a goalkeeper.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, goalies really always take the most unathletic guy anyway, so.
Exactly. And I do think that I'm the best goalie, so I don't think Jabril stands a chance, you know?
Okay, all right.
Hey, but ask him who has scored against him when we played on opposing teams. He's never scored against me, so.
Look at the scoreboard.
It doesn't work like that.
No, numbers don't lie.
I played a little bit of soccer in high school, and I was defense only because I couldn't shoot worth crap, so.
Oh.
You had a bum knee. You had lots of problems.
I have a bum. Everything.
At 6 years old, his career ended with the bum knee.
So sad. So sad.
To lay some groundwork for our audience, I'd like to paint a little image with you guys for a second. Pretend you're riding an elevator after COVID, after a vaccine. You're in an elevator, riding it up. We get on at the second floor. We click floor 9, and you think these guys probably want to hear about, what I believe. You got 7 floors to give me your elevator pitch for what your faith is. Let's hear it. Boom, I click floor 9.
Boom, floor 9.
All right. In a nutshell, I'm Muslim. How you guys doing? My name is Jabril. In a nutshell, being Muslim and being someone that's a practitioner of Islam means that you believe that there's one God and that God sent down prophets to give out his message to the people of the world. That's it.
Boom. There it is. All right, Muhammad, you got a different one you want to try out?
Yeah, I got it.
All right. Boom. Floor 9.
So I would say Islam is definitely about bringing people together upon the book that was brought down to the world by our prophet. Peace and blessings be upon him, who was the messenger and the last prophet for all humankind. So believing in the prophet and all the prophets and all the books and the angels and just life and being a good person, that's what Islam is, because that's what brings all back to God, the only one, the true one.
Nice, well rehearsed. It's like
Amen.
You guys know what you're doing here. That's good.
It's a day-by-day thing, man. You just call something a good day.
Yeah. So your podcast is called Young and Muslim. I know. See, I watched your first episode, and you guys were talking about how people butcher the pronunciation of Muslim all the time, and so now it's gotten in my head too much. So I'm gonna screw it up because I've raised saying Muslim with the Z, which I know you hate. So I'm gonna try my best with the soft S. But I'm not going to get it perfect. So I appreciate the patience.
You're good.
So your podcast, Young and Muslim, your view and your sort of ideology is to your 2 best friends who are striving to help young Muslims appreciate and understand the real about being a young Muslim American. So I'm curious, 3 years experience, how's it going so far?
It's going pretty well. I think that we've cultivated a nice sized community, one that varies. They're all over the world. And through cultivating this community, we've really been able to learn that we're all so much alike, despite our cultural differences, even the way we practice the same religion is very different. But the message of striving to be better on a daily basis, trying to reach the one goal that, regardless of your religion, we're all kind of really seeking to reach, right? We're realizing that community, that's what keeps us together. That community is kept together by our experiences, regardless of how varied we are. It started out really slow. Like you talk about the first episode, and Muhammad and I were just talking about this a couple of days ago, funny enough, and when we first started, I would say the first 20 or so episodes never reached past 50 listens. And it was like so exciting when we get, so now we hit 60. And now you're seeing thousands and thousands of people. And it's just like mind blowing because, you really do this type of work to just say, hey, like we hear you, we feel you, we see you. And we want to be able to have a voice that, it's inclusive of everybody within, our space of being young and Muslim.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So you brought up the idea of practicing and people practice their faith really differently. And I got to be honest with you, of a lot of the religions of the world, Islam is one of the ones that I'm not the most familiar with. I've done some study of comparative religion, so I've got like a little bit of classroom experience with it, but how much does belief and practice vary between, like, for example, being a really traditional Muslim and
a more modern,
more or modern or
because in Christianity we have so much variation, like so many different branches and sects of Christianity. So,
well, Well, in Islam and Muhammad, I want you to give your take on this as well. In Islam, there's not as many sects, right? And Islam also allows there to be a cultural influence as well. So we're not a monolith. You hear that all the time. Muslims aren't a monolith. And that's because our culture also dictates certain things, like how we dress, for example. You'll see some women that wear the full the burqas or the wear where you can only see their eyes, and then you have someone that wear the kimar, the hijab, where it's just covering their hair, and it's a varying, right? And a lot of it depends on culture. Some of it depends on your degree of spirituality. So it's a wide spectrum between how you practice and how I practice. Where you grow up, the language you speak also dictates it. So that's really what I've seen in my lifetime that really varies with Islam. But the one thing that, as I said before, keeps us all together is La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, which means there's no God except Allah, which is ever for God. And Muhammad, the prophet, is his final messenger, which is important to say because I think in a lot of people's minds that aren't Muslim, they think that Muhammad is like a son of God or he's God. Like I've had people say, "Oh, you pray to Muhammad." I was like, no. That's not how it works. That's not how it works, buddy. But in this, and that right there is one of the first declarations of faith, is that you believe that there's one God and that Muhammad, showing that difference, is his messenger, not his relative, not his cousin, not his buddy. He's his slave servant to give out the message of peace and inclusiveness and justice. And
to add to Jabril's point, because you mentioned beliefs and practices, different cultures and different people around the world, they may believe, but they may not practice. I think that's something that's just consistent throughout all religions, or just lifestyles. Like, for example, praying 5 times a day is very hard. Even just praying at all is very difficult because life comes at you fast. So not only praying, when you say believe and you practice, say that God tells us that if you believe, you will be tested. So what we talked about with other people in regards to similarities for our podcast and our viewers, one thing that we have very similar with our struggles, how to deal with ourselves. We call something, it's called the nafs, N-A-F-S, nafs. That means like yourself. How you guys always have like that battle with yourself, sure. Like you want to do something right. So with the ego, so that's a very difficult battle. So our podcast has helped other people kind of attack that battle that pastors, preachers, or even imams aren't able to break down themselves because they just don't understand the culture, just the way of thinking. So we've been able to kind of cultivate that pool of thoughts, and it's been able to help not only people but ourselves. Because I'm like, if I'm saying this, I need to do it myself. If I'm telling people to get up early and pray and fast and take care of your family and your people, then I got to do it first. So
yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm curious, how much of that culture do you think is already out there, and how much are you trying to shift the culture so that it's there? And what I'm talking about is this sort of atmosphere where you guys are trying to be accessible in your religion, and you are flawed human beings as we are flawed human beings. And that's something that we feel really passionate about in the podcast for us, is like, and in a lot of ways, we're trying to do the same thing, just from different like faith backgrounds. And I think it's so important for people to realize, like, you don't have to be perfect to be religious. Like, I am not a perfect person. I'm happy to like air my ego and my flaws out there to try to be better. And like, we're all on a path of trying to be better. And I think that's something that Richard and I, not to speak for you, Richard, so feel free to jump in if I'm talking for you, but something I think that we as a larger Christian society lack is that accessibility and reality to be religious. And like, people should feel safe walking into church, and like they're around people who accept them, not fearing their pastors, not fearing God. I mean, there's some good fear of God, but you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. So that's a lot of what we're trying to do, and it seems like you're trying to do the same thing. So is that what you're pursuing directly, or do you feel like that's already there and you're just supplementing?
I don't think it's there at all. And to be honest, I think until we popped up on the scene, everything was very PC, right? And I think there's a point in time in history where we see this prudishness come into light in the world. And I would say it was somewhere within the 13th, 14th century, right? Where people just like, we don't talk about these topics because they're taboo. And that culture has carried over even until today, where something is as small as like sex, right? Like we all have to do it. All religions believe like, hey, you got to do this. We want to procreate.
We wouldn't be here otherwise.
Exactly. Right. but guess what? You're never going to hear about it out of in a religious context. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So it's like topics like those topics where, like where we talk about, your mess ups and you talk about the human vulnerabilities, those things aren't really talked about. And so you mentioned something in your previous question where you talk about the modern Muslim. I don't think it's so much that there's a modern version of a Muslim. I think that it's more so we have the issues that we have evolved over time. And we have to figure out, how do we navigate this world that we're in? And we're all trying to do that at the same time. So you guys are trying to do it. We're trying to do it. Everybody that listens to us are trying to do it. And yeah, I would say we're definitely on the same pathway. And if this is what the modern Muslim is, then yeah, we want everybody to know that we go through the same, pains, joys, the same wants and needs as everyone else.
Yeah. That idea of addressing a faith practice and a faith community, being able to address real problems and real struggles, I feel so passionately about. And I've realized recently this, from what I see in a lot of faith practices, a deep misconception about how people work on spiritual growth. And I think it comes from maybe somewhere back a good place, this idea of a faith community being a place where you want to promote the ideal living. You want to promote being your best selves, being the most connected to God, being the most loving to the people around you, being the most just and fair and right. But when you only present, here's what we're striving for, but never present, and here's where we are, then people look around and say, oh, everyone around me is talking about all these ideals, and here I am, a piece of crap that is flawed and struggles and hates myself sometimes and hates other people plenty, and I don't belong here, or it's not safe for me to be me here. It's not safe for me to share my struggles here because everyone around me is perfect, I guess. And that's just not how spiritual growth works, right? Spiritual growth is a view of an ideal with an understanding of where you are. And I think that faith communities are really good at the first and have been pretty garbage at the second, at least from my perspective in American culture. And I just feel like, man, if someone can't come into a religious community and say, I need help spiritually, where the hell are they going to go?
Yeah. That should be where they're safe.
All right.
Yeah. 100%.
Do you guys feel like, because I see a lot of fear of change holding back Christian churches from evolving to meet more modern needs and modern problems. Do you see anything in particular holding Muslims back from moving forward, or moving Islam back from moving forward and addressing the modern problems?
It's difficult because it's going to be different problems and different cultures and different traditions. What I would say is that probably maybe similar in the Christian faith-based communities, that you have your leaders and then you have the youth, and the leaders usually are the pioneers, the people that have been doing it for a while. They have a different way of thinking and a way that they've been always thinking, and they only bring in the youth when needed. But the problem is that, when that torch gets passed, you have to work together to not only give information to the youth, but also show them how to use that experience that you got and that knowledge to make something happen, but in their own way. They always want something done one way, not trying to understand the other person's point of view. So that kind of does hurt us because it's that disconnect. And the podcast has kind of been able to be that liaison, because if you ask any community what is their top few issues, they're gonna be connecting with the youth. We just can't do it, right?
Yeah,
and just
going all the time.
Even before COVID, right? people like we can't get people in the mosque was like what people are trying to do. I believe it's in Houston, Texas. They had a mosque that had a gym, a pool, exercise area, like a yoga place, or like a library where people can come and kind of be themselves, because they have other aspects of life that need to be tended to outside of just the mosque, and even inside the mosque that can still be pretty constricting for younger individuals that may see the way that they're practicing is adequate to God, and God is pleased with them, and being criticized by other people that don't even really know them, you know? So yeah, that's what I was saying. It's kind of like an issue that we've been seeing.
Yeah, I think on top of that, there's also the aspect that where we live and how we live is a lot faster paced than ever in history. There's so many more distractions, and the reality is that everything is in competition for the one thing that matters most, which is your attention, your time. And so before it was like, hey, we're going to go to mass, we're going to go to the masjid, we're going to go to the temple, we're going to, we're going to be with our family who also is there. And it's like now everyone's working, or if you're not working, you're trying to figure out some downtime, and the religious spaces are trying to figure out, how do we become part of your downtime? We've seen it done pretty well. We used to be part of this group called Chit Chat, which was really dope. It was where, we would get up with a bunch of Muslims that were around our age group, like the young Muslim range between, I don't know, late teens to like early 30s was kind of like the, age range. Yeah. And it was cool because that was a place where we all kind of we felt like we were with people like us. We're still in a religious setting, but it didn't feel like we were just sitting there listening to a sermon. We were learning something that was very interactive. And for me, that was huge. That was huge in helping me up my spirituality, because where I came from, where I live, it's very still. You sit down, you listen to somebody the whole time. And there's a lack of youth with the involvement in these places. So, as Muhammad said, how do these older leaders that have all the know-how of how to hold a community together, link up with younger people who are interested in podcasting or making movies or doing, whatever it is they like to do in the world, and want to bring that into their religious fold? That's, I feel like, the missing link within all of this.
Yeah, it's tough because at the same time, you don't want to pander to these people, and you don't want to make Gen Zs feel like you're just trying to suit their lingo. And I feel like sometimes people boil it down to, well, okay, people need to change to be Christian. The church shouldn't change to meet these people. And it's not always these two disparities. Like, the core message doesn't have to change. Just how you deliver the message needs to alter itself to be able to reach people. Because if you can't even reach people, then you have no opportunity to do any kind of good. Like, you could be preaching the best stuff possible, but if it's not being received, it's not going to go anywhere. And that doesn't mean you need to water down your theology or change your message completely. Just try to figure out what people are struggling with, what needs need to be filled, and what message can help that. And I don't know, it's just such a slow change, and it really frustrates me sometimes.
Do you guys get I know it's prevalent, and it's everywhere in our communities, where you get the same pastor or the same imam or preacher that talks on the same thing week in, week out. And it's like, for people our age, you're like, yo, it's not hitting home, buddy. It's not connecting.
For me, it's a combination of that and the social media tweets that are just a quote over a nice background. That's not doing much for me.
Or the pure lack of social media, right?
Disinterest in that.
Yeah, or just here's something very simple. The idea that you can send donations over Cash App. It's crazy for they're like, what do you mean? No, put the money in the box. You're like, sorry, George, I only carry card now.
Here's a link, buddy.
Yeah.
No one under 35 has cash. It's not a thing.
I can't remember the last time I paid cash for anything, honestly.
The amount of times that I go to church and I go, I don't have cash, or have to make a specific ATM trip just so that I can donate. is wild. And there's a lot of digital age that churches need to step into.
Yeah.
And I think that church communities have an interesting struggle with defensiveness from what I've seen, because it can be really easy to mix up what is adapting to a changing world in a healthy way and what is moving away from your core values. And it can be easy to kind of look at a step that feels foreign to you as the beginning of a slippery slope. And the idea of, the classic, like, oh, well, if we're doing this today, what are we going to be doing 5 years from now? Kind of.
So we can't
kind of
give them an inch,
idea.
I'll take a mile.
Yeah.
Well, sorry, go ahead.
And it's such as someone who has been and is continuing to step into a leadership role in my church organization, I feel like I have a good idea of what my generation wants from a church. But I also need to keep in mind, in the same way that the older generation needs to pay attention to what the younger generation needs, I need to also be able to serve older people in my church and say, in what ways can I move this organization forward that has them feeling excited about what the future looks like, instead of feeling like everything they've known and loved is being stolen from them. And it's such a wild balance to try to reconcile, especially with, like you said, how quickly the world is moving and changing at this point.
Yeah. Do you guys have some sort of like transitionary board or anything like that? Because I like the way I've seen it, I feel like it's never been done properly, where it's like, hey, one older leader is like, hey, well, my time's up, I'm out. And then someone new comes in and everyone's like, oh, what's about to happen? Like, this is crazy. Right. And I feel like if there was more of a transition, like the old leaders don't ever leave. I don't think they need to leave. I think they just need to surrender the top spot. And there needs to be like a train that says, hey, we're moving on, but you're still there. And then you can even bring in younger people that can help you connect with people younger than you, because when everyone's like, hey, this is the new guy, it's just him. It's like, okay, now you do have to learn how to connect with the older people, your generation, and still be cognizant of what people younger than you are doing. Because that in itself is a big job. That's a huge job.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great question. And I feel like people are often like treating religion as a one size fits all type of deal. And it's not always. Like, everyone needs to be heard in different ways. So our church, I mean, Richard's in a position that's sort of like that as assistant to the minister. But there's nothing like established in our church hierarchy that does that. But maybe, Richard, you could speak better to that.
So interestingly enough, right now, our congregation out here, our church community, is in the process of the pastor that's been here for almost 20 years is leaving, and a new pastor is going to be coming in. But the way it works the way it's working this time, at least, sometimes ministers just kind of retire in, the community they've been serving in. But in this circumstance, the pastor who is my boss is actually moving to be the leader of a bigger congregation. And someone else is moving into the area. So little old, fresh out of school me is going to be the transitionary person about being like, I've been here for a year. I've also been a minister for a year. Let me tell you how it works. So that's going to be very interesting for me to get a new pastor who has a ton more experience as a minister than I do, but I have a year more experience with this community and us both trying to figure out like how to serve this community. And I don't even know who it's going to be yet. I probably have met them, but who knows?
I smell job security.
They can't get rid of me now, or else no one will know what's going on.
You guys send him the podcast.
Except if you ask anyone in this community, it's actually our church secretary that runs everything. We don't know what we don't know what we're doing. We just show up and preach on Sunday.
Well, I want to shift gears a little bit and talking about some things about Islam and some questions about beliefs you guys have. But first, I want to say that one of my favorite things about Islam is your connection with God. I think mandatory prayer 5 times a day is super cool. Like I wish Christianity had a little bit more of that structure, because I can only speak for myself personally, but I really like structure. I do well with that. And so if I had like sort of that requirement every day to pray and connect, I think I would get a lot out of that. And I'm bad at creating it for myself. And yeah, I'm trying to work on it for sure. But I've always admired that dedication day in, day out to do what you need to do for your religion. I just super respect that. Also, I realize, we're getting toward almost 5. So if it gets dark and you guys need to pray, like, just let us know. It's just totally cool. Whatever you guys need to do. So I'm curious because everyone has different favorite aspects of their own religion. Like I have things about our religion that I really like. So I'm curious what your favorite aspects of Islam are.
I mean, I wanted to go on the point what you said about prayer and your structure and your day. Just on the basic level, it really is your day. We have a prayer early in the morning that's at like 6 o'clock, so like 5:40. So you have to wake up like 5:45, wash up, and then pray. And sometimes you can choose to either continue your day or go back to sleep. So it's like you got to be up, and it's priorities, it's discipline. So, but also on the other end, it's hard to just do that, right? And some people need some motivation. They need that extra push or somebody kind of help them, because that's like, I wouldn't call it like the standard, but that's like the place that you're trying to build to. And the problem is that people expect you to be there rather than meeting you where you're at. So that's what we see kind of hinders like the youth and everything. But go back to your question, what is my favorite part about the belief and the religion is that just our biggest thing is just being just nice to people, right? That's just what it is, and connect with people. On the lowest level, our prophet says a charity is just smiling at somebody. So somebody's having like a difficult day and just smiling at them, help them with the groceries, just cracking a joke, just making somebody's day easy. That can be your form of donation, just really helping push somebody through a difficult situation that they're going through. So that's what I'll say be my favorite part.
I mean, that's always when I feel closest to God too, like just doing those little things for people. Jabril, what about you?
Right.
To go in the same order as Muhammad, there's a hadith that says the best of you are those who display the best manners. And in the Quran, it talks extensively about giving charity and being good to your parents, right? Yep. So a lot of what Islam is showing good character. And I think for myself, that's probably my favorite part of this religion is the immense, intense, and just the weight of having to be a good person in this religion is what drives me. Because I'll be honest, like, do I make all 5 of my prayers every single day, my entire life? No, it's very hard to do, right? But knowing that, God is the most merciful and that you can always ask for that forgiveness and he will always accept it is, I love that. And in that, the attributes of Allah, right? We're supposed to try and embody those as well, to try and be, as you said, the deviation is there. Like Allah, the list of all of the attributes of God are there for us so that we understand how powerful he is, right? How revered he should be, but also that we should also want to have those attributes in our own lives. And I love that the most. And to go back what you said about prayer earlier, in the call to prayer, the Iqamah, there's a part that says, Hayya ala salah, hayya ala falah. Come to prayer, come to prayer, come to success, right? Now watch this. This is really trippy, especially when you've been Muslim your whole life and then you break it down and you realize, right? What is the one thing that most millionaires and successful people say they do every day?
Wake up early?
Exactly. Yeah. And they probably wake up around the same time we're supposed to wake up for Fajr, which is the first prayer of the day. Wake up for success. Wake up for success. So it's a lot of the things in our religion like the character building, is extremely practical to be successful in this life. And I know I said character building is probably my favorite part, but I think the practicality of our religion, more than anything, is what like really sits with me and like allows me to be closer to God in everyday life.
That's awesome. The idea of ritual is always one that is fascinating to me. It always gets me thinking because the balance of ritual I've found is so tough for a lot of people, because there are some people, and if you just like look at it in the context of, I know for me in my faith, there are services that happen in a cathedral and services that happen in a gymnasium in the same town, right? You know, and the ritual in them is pretty different. You know, what you're expected to wear to the service, the interaction, the way that the pastor talks, is really different. And I found that one thing that often drives young people away from a church community is ritual they feel stifled by and not connected to. So do you find that some of the practical ritual is one of the harder selling points for young people?
Yeah.
Or do you feel like it's something that draws people in?
Yeah, or like, yeah, and what's turning them away, sort of. Yeah.
Great question.
That's a very great question. I'll probably take a crack at it. What I would say in the beginning is that for younger people, just those attributes about praying and doing those responsibilities, it's very hard, right? And people fear that, like putting in the work, right? People just like, they just don't want to do it for many reasons, whether they're busy or they're just tired or just lazy. But God tells us that prayer is not for him, it's for us. So when you're sitting there and when your heart's broken or you're just broke or just whatever, it's like you calling on God, right? God's like, you call on me when you need help. So at the end of the day, when we do those things, it makes us feel better, feel whole. So when somebody's going through something, I'm like, yo, you got to get your act together. Have you been working out? Have you been sleeping? Have you been reading? Whatever. Have you been praying? Because that's a big aspect of trying to get your life going. Yeah, because our body is going to eventually die, right? But our soul is what's going to live on. So I think what we have to teach youth and ourselves is what type of practices can kind of like nourish the soul and keep us like refreshed. And that's prayer, that's reading, that's being good to people, that's charity. Have you ever like felt bad about something and so pissed off, and then you see like a homeless person, somebody needing, and then you help them, you just like automatically feel a little better? Like, you know what? Life isn't that bad, right? Perspective. So yeah, it's all about perspective. And if we could change the perspective from the youth and for the youth, you know, then that really helps, because we have to be actively listening, and they're going to tell us their perspective, right? Once we know that and we use what we know and try to kind of meet them in the middle, I think that's what's kind of the rituals that will prefer them. So
yeah, I think a lot of the rituals, such as praying 5 times a day, they deter the youth. And I'm not speaking specifically about prayer, but just like whatever their their resistance is within the faith. It's a deterrent because they don't fully understand it. I mean, it's kind of like when your parents tells you, hey, don't touch that. And then you got to touch it anyways, because you don't really understand why they tell you to do it. Or like they tell you to do something like make up your bed every day. And you're like, nah, I'm good. But you don't really understand like the benefits of it. I feel like in our religion, it's the same way. And as, you know, I was born Muslim and I grew up in a Muslim household, and, you know, a lot of things were told to me, like, do this, do that, do this, do that. And as you get older, you're like, why? Like, how's this benefit? Yeah, like, how does this benefit my everyday life? You know what I'm saying? So certain things, you know, you go into the Quran, you're looking at it and you're like, oh, this is why. This is why we do this. And as I said, as I've gotten older, I've started to understand it more in a practical sense. And it's made me actually want to do the more ritualistic side of the religion more, do my digging even more. So a lot of the youth aren't getting that same explanation as to why they do certain things, as to why our religion says do this or don't do that, right?
Right.
And if our leaders in the communities do a better job of actually explaining it and breaking things down to like baby first grade ABC level, you would see more youth be like, okay, cool. Oh, so you're telling me if I wake up early for prayer, like I'll be more likely to be like Bill Gates and have money? Cool, I'll do that. Yeah, take that, right? Take that. Like that's a good way to get you in. But as Muhammad said, like at the end of the day, the idea is to get the spirit and the soul to a level of, it's weird that I'm kind of using it like this, but a Bill Gates level, right? Like the equivalent of a spiritual richness and wealth versus like a monetary wealth.
Yeah. How it can encompass you holistically in life, not just like spiritually, like for everything.
Yeah. Because it is like at the end of the day, that's what Islam is. It's supposed to be our means of being able to navigate this world and the next, not just saying, hey, come and pray, and your soul be good. It's like, no, like your whole day, your whole well-being will be good. Like imagine breaking up your day 5 times a day so that you focus. I'm gonna stop myself midway to say this. When we pray, we say Allahu Akbar, which means God is the greatest, right? And I believe between all 5 prayers, you say something like 94 times in one day. So imagine 94 times in the day, you're saying God is greater. Not the greatest, greater. So greater than the whatever job, greater than all of that stuff you're going through. And 5 times a day, you're stopping to do that. Well, to me, that sounds like a pretty solid way of starting to remedy your depression, anxiety, and all the other stuff that you have going on because of what's going on here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that general point is something that, again, we're trying to do in our podcast as well, because I think that churches can get very heady and theological and like talk about spirituality, and we really want to hit the ground and address, sure, what's going on spiritually, but also what's going on in life and help people feel connected that way. I think that's dope, and it sounds like that's what you're also trying to do with your podcast as well. Is be the person that people can connect to, dispel those sort of misconceptions.
Yeah, because what's interesting about what we do is that people have probably tried to chart for us. Like I remember one of Mo's relatives was like, "Hey, like you're doing this and talking on religion. You should go to school and study." And we're like, "Well, we don't need more people that know the ins and outs. We need more people that can understand why the basics are so important, right? Like the best basketball players are the ones who understood the fundamentals the absolute best, not the one that was able to, crisscross, throw it off the backboard, off the back of that guy's head and then dunk. No, like that's cool. But the reality is majority of us can't do that. But all of us can start with learning how to actually dribble really well. Right?
Yeah.
Right? Like the fundamentals of our religion, and I say this about Islam, but I think for any religion, if the youth starts to understand why the fundamentals are so good and they start doing those, like if I could just tell everyone on our podcast, like, yo, just try and pray 1 prayer a day, I feel like I've done my job. Like, I feel like I could go to heaven and feel like, all right, I did really well just getting everyone to pray once of the 5 times.
Yeah. I really like what you said about discovering the practicality of ritual. And I feel like that's such a big one for me. I remember
instead of it feeling rote.
Yep. I remember growing up, one of the things, and I think I liked going to church as much as the average kid that grew up religious. You kind of went and
you wanted to be
attention.
A minister since you were a baby.
Doesn't mean I liked going to church. Nice. I wanted to be the one talking. I didn't want to listen. But one thing I always hated was we would have this moment where we would kneel down to pray and we'd have like 10 lines and the minister would read one and the congregation would read one and the minister would read one and the congregation would read one. And it was this call and response thing. And I remember being like, what a waste of my time. Like I'm so focused on being like, when am I supposed to read? What am I supposed to read? That I am not absorbing anything. Like I have learned nothing. I'm just going through the motions. And now we do that twice. Now church is 5 minutes longer than it needed to be. And I have never liked that. And I've talked to older people that are like, it's the most beautiful part of church for me, because it represents for me talking to God and God answering, right? And obviously we don't think that minister is God, but they're representing it for the people. You know, that when we say things to God, when we pray, it's a conversation, not a request. And it's about having a conversation, being in conversation with God. And I was like, wow, like it has never meant that for me.
Yeah, that's an interesting way. I haven't thought of it that way either. I vibe with that.
And it's really, and like the moment that happened, I was like, okay, like, yeah, I can be on board with this. Like, that's a cool thing.
Yeah.
And the moment you bring meaning to the ritual, it isn't some weird stifled thing. It's a powerful thing, because everyone, no matter what they believe and what they do, have ritual. Whether you're religious or not, you have ritual. Whether it's making your bed in the morning or making your cup of coffee, you have ritual that means something to you. That's important. And for us around the Christmas season, there's a lot of holiday ritual that's really important, because people have connected something deeper to it. And I think church communities need to be better at instilling the importance behind ritual in the younger generation, because then either the younger generation will be excited about that ritual, or from that deeper belief will create a ritual that's important to them. And even if that ritual looks totally different, the ritual's never been the point, right?
Yeah.
Like we don't pray because it's really good for our knees to kneel. Like that's not why we pray.
Trust me, try 5 times a day. You'll get the crack in your knees real easy.
It's a benefit.
There's this Imam Sheikh Numan Ali Khan. He's really big, you know, very well known. And he was saying that he takes his children to Quran class, right? To learn Quran, you know, interpret the meaning and things like that. And as little kids, he would take them to ice cream right after, because they needed positive reinforcement to realize, like, this stuff is boring sometimes, but I want you guys to associate with something good like ice cream, right? And my dad used to do that. I just realized this the other day. My dad used to take me after every Friday prayer. We would go to Burger King and get a fish sandwich and a milkshake. And we did that for years. And I never understood why until I heard that. And I was like, he got me.
yeah. My dad would take me to, we had this like all you can eat Chinese restaurant we would sometimes go to after church. And I was like, oh man, I'm excited to get that all you can eat General Tso's right now. Let's go.
Exactly. So it made it more bearable, right? To sit through the ritual, or even just something like, you know, I know Muhammad, the way we grew up was vastly different, where he was in a bigger community versus me in a very small. I was like one of the only kids in my community. So for him, like, part of the benefit of doing all this was probably, hey, I get to see my friends. Like, all my friends are there, you know? So you have to put the positivity in the ritual as well as the practicality. And I love the way you broke that down, Richard. Like, I feel like that serves on both ends.
Yeah, for sure. So it sounds like, I mean, you guys sound pretty solid in your faith. How has your belief changed over time? Like, have you always been this much like by the book and this positive about everything, or has it kind of like ebbed and flowed?
It definitely changes. One of the hardest times for me as an individual and as a Muslim was after college, right? After graduating college back in 2013. That's when Jabril and I met, and we actually graduated early, and we worked so hard. Then we got the diploma for the first like 4 or 5 months. It was very hard. Couldn't find a job. So I hit a very low and depressive like mindset. So at that point, I really didn't see myself connecting to God or calling out to God. It was more just me trying to figure things out on my own. Because I was like, hey, I graduated college. Like, I'm ready for anything. This is how much I'm worth, you know? But none of that came into fruition on the time that I wanted it to. So I was like pretty upset. So at that time, like, my spirituality was low. My faith was low. So definitely it's ebb and flow based on what's going on. But what I learned in this year, 2020, with every day being an unknown, right? Is that no matter what's going on around me, I got to make sure that I'm better inside. So that's been like 7 years since I graduated college. So that's from where I was then to where I am now. Like, every day is going to be crazy. Every day is going to be hectic, but I got to make sure that I'm good inside, even if the world's on fire. So that's the difference between my practice now and what it was earlier.
Amen.
Yeah.
I think my general belief has always been pretty solid. I've obviously questioned just as much as anyone else, but I've never swayed in my belief. In my practice, I've definitely swayed, right? As Muhammad said, like when you go to college, you get into all the shenanigans. And I think that like those experiences actually brought me closer to God now.
In hindsight.
Like it's like in hindsight, like it's all the long game, you know what I'm saying? So, we wouldn't be doing this podcast if we didn't ebb and flow or sway or, get knocked off 10 years prior, right?
Sure.
If I was always solid, then no, I don't need to. No, I wouldn't have the perspective. I wouldn't know what it was like to be down here if I was always thinking I'm up here, Yeah. So I think that, like I've ebbed and flowed, but my belief, my understanding has obviously improved as years gone on. But just to really go through some stuff and then really be like, wow, that was God.
Yeah.
There was no denying that. I feel like life, that's just the way it works. Like you have to go through that sort of stuff to kind of understand how God kind of features in your life and is really the feature, the theme of this place.
Yeah, I hear that.
And Jabril, to add to Jabril's point is that there is a time as a Muslim or person of faith in your life is like, why do I believe? Because especially when you're raised as a Muslim, your parents are Muslim, you're Muslim because you were born Muslim, right? Mm-hmm. And then you get to a point like, okay, I know why my parents believe, my family believe, but why do I believe? Like, what are my reasons?
Instead of just inertia.
Yeah, exactly. And then we have something that's called the Shahada. And Jibril actually took his, even though he was Muslim. I was just reaffirming hey, I'm choosing to be Muslim and I'm doing this because this is the way that I want to live. So I think we all hit that too, whether it's you're Christian, you're Muslim, it's okay, well, why do I believe in God? What do I see? Or do I not believe in it? And then those are conversations that I had too. So we can't forget that.
Yeah, my dad says it all. He used to tell me all the time. He's like, hey, if you want to be a different religion, go ahead. But I'm going to raise you under this roof as a Muslim, and I'm going to educate you enough so that you can, you can go and know what Christians believe, or Judaism, or Hinduism, Buddhism. And so I grew up with an understanding of all of them. I have friends. Majority of my family is Christian, or they don't really have a religious preference. Yeah. So it was cool growing up that way, where I wasn't pressured into being Muslim. Obviously you're 10. Hey, come on, you're going. Yeah, there's pressure. But as an adult, I had that room to kind of just play and maneuver and figure out what's my path to all of this, I
mean, I think that's super important. And that's something Rich and I have talked about a bunch is we want to encourage people to question their own beliefs, to make an active choice in their lifestyle, in what they, who they choose to worship or whatever their religion is. Don't just, let inertia take you to your belief,
Mm-hmm. That's one of my favorite parts of my faith practice. This idea of nobody evil goes through temptation, right? Because temptation, nobody evil goes through temptation. Because if you're a bad person, then there's nothing to tempt, right? You're just going to do the bad thing. Temptation, struggle is a sign that you're trying to resist, right? A sign that you're trying to improve. And so this idea of doubt and struggle with your faith is a sign that you're trying to understand it better, a sign that you're trying to improve. Because if you just didn't care, you would discard it and there would be no struggle, right? Mm-hmm. And I've always been I think there are some branches of Christianity that see doubt and questioning as a weakness in your faith. And I just really disagree with that. I see doubt as a strength, right? Because only by doubting do we analyze and seek a deeper understanding and come out the other side of it more confirmed and more deep in our faith.
And if a pastor is saying, "Hey, don't doubt this. This is true. Don't question me," that's like definitely what you should question.
You should question it.
Yeah.
I had to write that quote down, man. That was huge.
Great.
No one evil goes through temptation. I had to write that down. That's a sick quote, Richard.
Thanks.
You got the right job, my friend. You are definitely doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, there's a sermon topic right there, baby.
Oh yeah, writing it down.
I was listening to one of your older podcasts, and I remember you guys were talking a little bit, and you just mentioned it about like college and having that be sort of a low point in your faith and that kind of thing. So I wanted to talk about like partying a little bit, because I'm sort of a proponent of partying, and I'm not saying like going and get blackout drunk and hooking up with people for the sake of it, but so what do you think is sort of the detriment of partying in those years of your life? Like you're in college, like go out for drinks with friends, that sort of thing. Is that cool, or what? What is the low point there?
It kind of goes back to what I was saying before with everything being practical, right? And I didn't realize this stuff until obviously you hindsight and you start looking into it. The Quran forbids us to drink or use intoxicants or, drugs and things like that, right? And this is how I perceived it later on, is that when you do those things, they inhibit you from experiencing life to its absolute fullest. And what I mean by that is, I remember a time after I gave all that stuff up, specifically drinking, there was this time where it was like I was just high off of life. And it's a real thing. I thought it was just some crazy quote, like, get high off of life. Like, no, like, so, Dare back in the day, like the 90s. Yeah, like, yeah, say no. But
I won a Dare essay back in my day or two.
But like, I remember I was just like, life was just like, there was like a really happy time. And it was because I wasn't fogged out. I didn't feel like I was wasting time either.
So how do you, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask how you draw that line, because couldn't you apply the same thing like video games or watching TV? Like,
well, everything comes in moderation, right? And
Sure.
Everybody's vice is different. So for instance, like TV for me is completely different for someone that just zones out. Like I sit and I'll watch TV and I'm like, well, I need to get back to work, right? Mm-hmm. Someone else that, like my sisters, they'll watch TV and stay in front of the TV for hours and hours and hours and get nothing done. So the practicality and, why our religion says, hey, like you shouldn't do these things starts to become more evident when you, in my opinion, find your purpose, find that calling in your life. And once you find that, that's when you start giving up a lot of those other things.
So is it less about the things specifically and more like what your specific falling points are? Like if for me, like having a drink with some friends was a bonding time, but like I really get sucked into TV, should I then avoid TV more than I avoid alcohol? Or is it the substance itself that's the problem?
Well, it's the substance itself within Islam,
okay.
Right? And funny enough, a lot of people don't know this. There was a point in time where Muslims were permitted to drink. Right. However, as time went on, it was revealed to the Prophet Muhammad from God that drinking is no more. Why? And I asked myself the same thing. I was like, why? Like I would have loved to live back then. That would have been great. The reason there's a hadith, and the hadith is like a saying of the Prophet. It's like a recording by someone else that he said this, and it goes down like a chain of narration. It was reported that I can't remember exactly who said it, but one of the companions of the Prophet said that if we were commanded to stop drinking first, none of us would have ever came to the faith of Islam, because we all would have been like, why? Like, this is so fun. Like, we don't do anything harmful, So it's more of those things where like the intoxicant takes away your ability to give all of your senses to life, right? Like once you get over that edge of being tipsy, and then it's just like,
yeah, sure.
you start to feel a little loose, but you're not as aware of what's going on. It's like to never be in that fog and to be in pure clarity of life and what's in front of you is what we strive for. You know what I'm saying?
No, I hear that. I respect that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like I didn't answer the question where you're like, was that a low point for me? I feel like, yeah, it was definitely a low point. It was a low point for me personally where spiritually I wasn't active. I was kind of like dormant, but I had to have that period where it was like, you're down here to experience that so that now you understand why in the Quran those things are there so I can share it with others.
No, I hear that. Thank you. Yeah, that's cool. Richard, any follow-ups or anything? I haven't given you a chance to speak. I feel like
I'm just thinking about it. I feel like so I guess my question is, and I don't know if I need to keep pushing on this.
No, I was just curious.
But like, I don't know, there are times that I have a drink and I'm not at all intoxicated, right? You know, I have a big dinner and I have one beer after dinner. Mm-hmm. There's no, at least as far as I can tell, no intoxication happening. Is the strict adherence to sobriety just because it wouldn't be as powerful to say like, well, in the Quran it says, well, maybe one beer after dinner, you know, like that would be kind of a weird, and people could easily take that and be like, well, then maybe two, you know, kind of idea. How big a beer am I allowed to have? You know, as people are wont to twist things to be easier for them. Is it more, do you see it as like, it's just easier to not at all? Or is it like even one is actually, there's something inherently bad?
I mean, oh, sorry, go ahead.
What I think is that it's just the whole aspect of it and the energy that comes with it. So, for example, if you're just like, hey, you know, I can have one beer, right? And then your mind starts going and questions start being asked, like, okay, if it's okay to have one beer, then maybe you just have another. And just going back to college, like, we didn't have to be down low to drink and party. That's just like what we're doing because that's what others were doing. So we know that God's speaking to us, but at the same time, we also have like, quote unquote, the devil speaking to us. So it's like, even when you put yourself in those type of like scenarios, more things are just inclined to happen. For example, you're like, okay, I'm not going to really drink. I'm going to hold myself, but you continue to keep going to the bar. Your chances of drinking are going to decline drastically. You can have the self-control, obviously, to keep pushing yourself out of it, say, I'm not going to do it. But then you also pass the point in your life, you're like, yo, if I'm not going to drink, I really don't like hanging out there anymore, I'm just going to just stop going. Then you get to the point where it's like, well, I see that I'm having a beer after every dinner. That really doesn't like suit me anymore. And I've gotten the discipline to not do it. You just kind of stop doing it.
Yeah,
you know?
I have a deep respect for discipline in general, and making sure that you're not addicted to anything, whether it's a beer or just a lifestyle choice or whatever it is. Just making sure that you are in control of yourself. And I'll check myself at the door because I have a lot of control issues in my life. Like I'm a very like rigorous like control over myself, which is a pro and a con. So I definitely respect that discipline, though.
Yeah. There's a quote in the Quran that it appears a few different times where it says, "There's good in it, but the bad outweighs the good." And I believe it's speaking specifically towards drinking and intoxicants, where it's like, you're right, Richard, like one beer after dinner is cool. Like I get a little loose, I'm relaxed, like I feel great. But the bad in it is inherently outweighing the good that comes with it, right? Whether you're talking health, whether you're talking even just your behavior. Like the funny thing is, I didn't start drinking because of spirituality. I started drinking because I didn't like my behavior.
I was going crazy.
You know, so
You
yeah,
didn't start or stop drinking because of your behavior?
Stopped.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So it was one of those things where it was like me, as you guys can probably tell, I take the practical reasoning out of it first. Like I couldn't be my best self when I was drinking. So I had to stop. And then I started treating people better. And then I started praying more. So it's like the spiritual aspect came after that, right? The other thing is that you're right. The one beer isn't bad. However, that's for Richard, but for Jesus, right? One beer might lead to a second, to a third, and then he's beating his wife. or he's yelling at his kids, or he's driving drunk.
Drinking and driving.
Exactly. So like, it's not so much that you're just going to be this horrible person now that you drink or that you use drugs and this and that. It's just that the spectrum in which you can go with that one drink, just that one drink already starts you like, you're more likely to do this and this and this. Mm-hmm. And so Islam is like, we're going to cut that out so you don't even get there. Yeah. So that there's not even a chance that you go down that route. You might still beat your wife, but if you had started drinking, you would have been beating your wife 5 years earlier. You just need help in general, but we're going to cut this thing out so that it's less likely that the bad things that you would get tempted to do, you'll be likely to do it.
Yeah, I hear that. I think for me, what makes the most sense is dealing that with any behaviors in general that are a slippery slope or that lead you down a dark path. Not like, for me, not alcohol itself, but anything that you're predisposed to that's making you less connected to God, less of a good person, that hindering your progression in life. I definitely see that. Sorry, go ahead, Richard.
So other question about that. How does the teaching of avoiding intoxicants, how does that play into like prescription drugs that alter your mental state? Like, I know for me, I like Luke was saying, I'm very careful about what I consume. Like, I make sure to not drink coffee every morning because I don't want to need caffeine to wake up. You know, and that's because for a long time, I took ADD medicine because I have ADD, and it helped me focus and get through school, and I needed it at the time. But I also hate the way it made me feel and hate the way it affected me emotionally. So I have a lot of aversion to reliance on a substance. How do you think the teachings of Islam play into things like if you need ADD medication or if you need antidepressants and things like that?
So certain things are permissible, right? So like it's not so much like it's in the Quran, it's more like a ruling upon Sharia, which is like the set of laws that you live by, right? And if I believe correctly, one of our advisors, Imam Suhaib Webb, he spoke on this. Well, someone was like, well, what about, people that can get prescribed medical marijuana? Well, he's like, you're prescribed it by someone who is deemed a professional, and they have the necessary knowledge to deem that you need to take X, Y, and Z prescription for your ailment or your, whatever you need it for, right? So like my sisters, they take certain medications, or just like, myself, like I need coffee at least once, right? But there was a point where I got addicted, so I had to cut myself off, like to the point I was having like cold sweats and shakes and stuff. Right. So at that point, it was starting to become like drinking, where it was like, this is no longer good for me anymore. So I need to cut this out. But yeah, there is that part of Islam where we have certain rulings that say, hey, you can do this under these set of circumstances where it's absolutely necessary or it's deemed fit for you.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm curious, kind of zooming out a little bit. Is there anything in Islam that's hard for you to reconcile with? Like, are there any points of dissonance that you see with your religion? Like, I know for myself, there are lots of aspects about Christianity that I love, and other things like whether it's about my church in specific or my belief in specific, I'm like, oh man, it's harder for me to get where it says I should be, sort of, or I don't fully believe that right now. I'm going to work on that. Like, are there any points where it's hard for you to get on board with?
I mean, that's a really good question that you asked. I think in the aspect of Islam, the most difficult thing to look at it is almost the idea of about it being a perfect concept, right? Because we say that the religion itself is perfect, but Muslims aren't. So the people. So in this journey that we're going through, God sends people to help us in our lives or to tear us down, whichever way you want to see it, right? When you ask for help, because you're going to need it along the way, people it's hard for us to find that community kind of bounce off of to keep us going, right? Because you're just like, man, why does this require so much from me? You know, on a daily basis, whatever it is, like, man, this thing looks like it's so hard and it's out of reach. That's why you need good people around you consistently. So for me, it's just like when I see the religion, I know that entails hard work, a lot of discipline, but also you got to use the resources that God gives you, which is a good community, a mosque, people, financial stability, you know? So I try to look at God's blessings and understand that everything that's going on in my life, it's a test, and it doesn't require me to be a perfect person in regards to be a good Muslim, when other people think that you have to be here in regards to be that staple, you know, like
I guess my question maybe to rephrase, like, more, this is a very personal question, so feel free to not answer.
Absolutely.
But like, is there anything about the theology itself that you struggle with?
I think some of the stories, right? Like, we all have the same stories. Like, how hard is it for you to think that a guy named Jonah got swallowed by a whale? You know what I'm saying? Or that there was this flood that took out the whole earth, and, you know, a handful of people survived, and we're all the descendants of this person. Or Moses split a whole sea, and they ran across this sea before Pharaoh could get to them. Like it's hard to conceptualize some of these things because it's so grandiose, right? And I think for a while it was very difficult for me to take these stories and to make them come down to earth. It was very difficult for me to, you know, to look at, you know, these people that like you said, it's like this A, as Muhammad said, it's like this A+ version. And so I realized, man, most classes you can pass with a C-, so religion must be the same, right? So yeah, like I can get by. And so like, it's almost like you just kind of stumble into, you know, getting that perfection. But as far as like the stories, what I started to realize is, you know, what lesson can be learned out of each of these prophets? Because even when you look at someone like Moses doubted his faith. Moses thought he was going crazy. All right. Noah, like, this guy was building the ark for hundreds of years. Like, something like that is crazy to conceptualize, right? Like Noah lived to be like 936 years old. Yeah. Like, that's crazy to conceptualize because we are here today, now. But how crazy is it going to be, you know, in 100 years when we tell kids that we used to listen to music on a cassette tape? You know what I mean? Like, I know it's not the same thing, but like, for me, that's what it was like. It was very hard to look at these spiritual tales and be like, okay, that's definitely fact. I can see that happening, you know?
Yeah, I hear you on that. And when people, I mean, that's something that not only do I have to grapple with for myself, but have to help other people grapple with. And people expect me to have answers that make them feel satisfied. And my answers are like, yeah.
Pretty wild, right?
Yeah, Abraham was pretty old. Like,
he was tripping.
Well,
I don't know.
I mean, I think
tell you on that one.
Like, our religion kind of goes into the importance of those stories are more in the symbology of what they represent than their factuality. And we have a lot of stuff, especially in the Old Testament, that we're like, what's important here is the message of what's happening, not, you know, that Eve was made from the rib of Adam. Like let's look past the words on the page and let's look at the meaning of the words instead. Is what a lot of our religion, like our sect of Christianity, is about.
Yeah, to give you a little bit of specificity, we think like what we call the very beginning of the book of Genesis. I don't know if do you name the books of Moses in the same way?
No, but in Islam, we, as Muhammad said at the very, very beginning, you have to believe in all the books, all the prophets, and that there's one God. So like the book of Genesis, like that's very much a part of our religion as well.
So for us, the book of Genesis, everything up until right before Abraham. So like Adam and Eve, the days of creation, the flood story, the Tower of Babel, all that stuff is mythology, sort of an analogy, symbolic messages, not true history.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not really important, because starting with Abraham going onward, there's plenty of other stuff that, you know, the Pharaoh
Abraham
and the Red
himself
Sea.
how old did Abraham live to?
Oof, why you got to put me on
I have the chart
spot like this?
I have the chart. We have like a lineage of the prophets, because you know they were all.
Can you show
yeah. It's right there. So it's like a tree. It starts with Adam, then it goes to Idris, and then Noah.
Oh, that's cool.
And then there's a flood. And so like there's like the little leaves. Hold on, which way? All right. So
show and tell.
Yeah. So I wish I could get closer for you guys. But yeah, so it basically goes all the lineage. And you have Muhammad that's like, where's my hand? Like right there. And then, you know, on the other end, there's Jesus. And you see how Muhammad's by himself is because he comes down the lineage of Ishmael, while the other prophets come down the lineage of Isaac. All right. Was interesting is that in Islam, we take them as both. We believe them to be symbolic, as well as also being the truth of the matter within the stories. So as hard as it is for me to believe that, you know, Abraham was called, you know, and God like stopped, or the angel Gabriel or Jibril came down and stopped him from killing his son. Like I accept that happened, but I'm also going to take the lesson from it. Right.
Yep.
More importantly, I'm going to take the lesson. And I think that's what all of us are kind of like. The lesson matters almost more than the story itself, because that's what's going to build our character. That's what builds our faith and our reliance on God.
Yeah, I often will talk to people that are questioning of faith in general and asking me how I can possibly believe in things. And I often run into this argument of like, well, how can you prove it? And I'm like, well, it's not called science. It's called faith, right? Like if I could prove it, I would be telling you about science and you would have learned about it in school. You know, you would have learned about it in science class, but that's not the point, right? Being able to say like, oh, I can prove from historical evidence, I dug up bones that blah, blah, blah. Like that's not the point, right? That's not why it exists. It's a life practice. It's a way of being a better person.
And I think the proof is in the pudding in some sense, because like I think you living that lifestyle makes you a happier person a lot of the time, and so you're gonna feel better and be happier and help people living this sort of lifestyle. And it's a method to be happiest and your most successful sort of spiritual and physical self. So
I think it's a game of chance though, right? Like I feel like there's either two paths, either you're religious or you're not religious, right? And in the way I explain, I had a friend, me and him would go back and forth. He was atheist, hardcore, like, no, I don't believe in God at all. And I was like, well, if you're getting ready to get hit by a bus, you're gonna go, oh my God. That's the first thing you're gonna shout out is, oh my God, right? Not oh my Einstein, like, no, right? And that was just a joke I would give him, right? But I look at it as a game of chance. If being religion, let's say I don't even believe that there's an afterlife, right? What harm does it do to actually follow a religion that makes me a better person? If there's a 1% chance that there actually is an afterlife, I'd rather take that chance and still be a good person rather than saying there isn't that and still be a good person. Because it's like, I don't lose anything. You only gain. You gain control. And I think that's what we're all kind of after. Religion gives us a set of principles that help us have more self-control to say, hey, you can't just do anything you want.
And I think people can get there using philosophy and using just like moral ethics to live life by a moral code and be happy. But I like obviously the version best where there's God at the end. To me, that just puts a nice bow on how the world and the universe works. It fits. It makes more sense to me at the end of the day. But I fall back a lot of the times to the same thing as you do, Jibril, for sure.
Yeah, because I mean, how much does it suck that if you're just like, yeah, after this, that's it. Like this,
dude, that sucks
this is
big time.
it.
Yeah, that's super sad and depressing to me. I don't know. Right? So maybe it's naive to believe in something, but who gives a shit? Like I'm happy. I'm doing well. Like we're all on the same page. I don't know.
Yeah, that idea was the original spark that brought me back to religion. When I was in college, I was I was getting a major in religion because I was planning to be a minister. And all of a sudden I found myself thinking that the idea of God and the afterlife was something that humans created because we were scared of what happened after we died. So we needed something to help us sleep at night. And I was really struggling, and someone just real coyly was like, hey, have you heard of Pascal's wager? And I was like, what the heck is that? And he was like, oh, look it up. And it's this philosopher Pascal who said basically like, the reason I'm religious is because like, if there is an afterlife, I've spent my whole life trying to get there and be a good person. And so when I die, I'm prepared. And if there isn't, like, we're all dead. You can't tell me I told you so, right? We're all dead. Doesn't matter.
Exactly. So it's a win-win either way. It's a win-win.
But I do think, and one thing I've tried to, or been coming to more recently, is being opposed to the sort of end game religion of like, oh, I'm going to be a good person so that I gain my spot in the afterlife, so that I deserve this from God. And like that paints a really selfish picture of how to live. And so for me, and I fall prey to that a lot because I'm very much like, oh, I'm going to work, I'm going to earn something, I'm going to deserve it. Like I'm good at that. I can, and stepping back from that and being like, well, no, this is helping me be good and happy now. And I want to invite that sort of calmness into my life more. So not only could it be good long-term, sure, but I'm not going to, for myself, I'm not going to try to focus on that a ton because that leads me to a more selfish place. And like, yeah, that'd be great, but I'm going to focus on what I can do today and how I can make the world a better place today. Not that any of that is wrong. Just like for me, that's something I've been thinking about a lot lately.
You just summed up my thoughts exactly.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, you just summed it up exactly.
Nice. Well, what are you guys' thoughts on? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Richard.
I was going to say, I totally agree, but I also think that sort of mindset is a useful kind of backup plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, starting place
it's just
and backup
like getting
plan.
Burger King after Sunday, or after going to the mosque. Like,
yeah, that idea of like, I don't know, because one thing I struggle with, I'm very relationship oriented. So the moment I'm like, is the way I'm living hurting other people? That's often an easy motivator. But when it's like, is the way I'm living hurting me? I can kind of be like, oh, it's not that bad. Like, whatever. I'll start fixing it tomorrow.
Or I can handle it. I'll be fine. Yeah.
Or like, oh, this is probably bad if other people do this, but I'm going to be responsible kind of idea. And falling back on that idea of like, actually, I can't trick God. Turns out I can't be like, as long as no one, including God, sees me be a bad person, then it's fine if I'm just a bad person alone by myself. And falling back on like, actually, heaven isn't where everyone's nice to each other. Heaven is where everyone's nice to each other because they're all genuinely good people with people and by themselves. Yeah. And if I want to be part of that community, I need to be the whole picture, not just the shell of a nice person.
Yeah.
And so the idea of the afterlife is kind of a fallback when I'm struggling to take it to the full 100%,
I like that.
I like that story, man. I was listening to something a few days ago, and it was saying that if those are the requirements to get to heaven, like you said, the heavenly community, you have to be a good person. Then it's like, why not start now and just be a good person? Because you have to be a good person to get into that group anyway. So when you start thinking about stuff like that, like you mentioned, if you want to be a good person, you have to start with yourself. You have to be good to yourself, take care of yourself, tell yourself that you're going to be okay, that you're a smart person. Like, just that reassurance, because if you beat up yourself and treat everybody nice, it's only a matter of time until you're not going to be a good person anymore, because you're always thinking negatively and you're not going to be able to trust people, have trust issues and hurt them, because you heard the saying, hurt people. Yeah. So all that comes full circle, so just trying to, not be connected to anything and being your best self, because that's just what we're all meant to be.
And I feel really strongly about that too. Like, you are only stuck with one person your whole life, and it's yourself.
Yeah.
It's not your wife or your husband. So like, why not make yourself someone you want to be with? Like, if I don't want to be stuck being best friends with a horrible person my whole life. Like, just having that shadow following you around.
Yeah.
And I do think you reap what you sow. Sorry, what were you saying?
I was just going to say, and to piggyback off of what you said, Luke, is also being comfortable with who you are as well, like liking who you are. And I think a lot of times we always say, oh, like, nah, I need to change this to change it. But it's like, nah, like, I'm pretty dope. I think I'm pretty, I think I'm pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times I think that's just a consequence of just being human and in that. And once you come to that realization, like, nah, I was created like this purposefully, and all these struggles, all these, the positives, the negatives, all that stuff was created for me to struggle in and to have, they call it jihad of the nafs, like the fight of the nafs, right? We have that so that we grow. So I look at this as like a giant movie. Each of us are the star of our own movie, and God gives us all these tests and part of our character development. Like when Spider-Man loses his powers, and he's like, well, I'm cool just not being Spider-Man. That's like where we're at the entire time we're here. we're at that part of the movie the entire time. And then once we get to the end, like, we get Mary Jane, and it's still not the greatest. Like, then you got someone want to take her. It's like, it's a constant movie of like, of good and evil, but instead of the outside force, it's more like an internal good and evil that fight between you, the nefs, and God is this playwright. Like, this is gonna suck for you for about 40 minutes, but I guarantee you the ending is sweet.
That's awesome. I love.
Sorry, I love movies. So.
No, dude, I'm actually an actor as well. I'll have to chat with you about that later.
Yeah.
But we've been talking for a while, so I know we need to start wrapping up. I just have a couple more questions I wanted to get to. So we're kind of dancing around this idea of the afterlife. So I was wondering if you guys could paint me a picture of what the afterlife is like what you think's going to happen once you shed this mortal coil.
I mean, we already know that the literal sense of what's going to happen in regards to just our body, like dying and our soul transferring and waiting for our turn. What is it, like 40,000 years? Or we just, in those type of aspects in regards to getting our deeds, will it be in our right hand or our left hand, which means our right hand that we have been successful and have been pardoned into the afterlife. But we also know that without God's mercy, we have no chance, So with that, we're being humbled. Our goal is to get as many good deeds as we can, not only get them, but save them. Because I could be a good person, but talk about Jabril the whole time, I'm actually losing all of my good deeds, and he's getting them, right? And we also believe in heaven. Once we enter, we'll be having like gold and green, I believe silk roads, and then like streams and rivers of like milk and like honey and like juice, and having houses on mountains like miles and miles long. So we also do have that visual of how heaven's going to be. So we are pictured with that as well. And you're at a prime age of 33, and you'll be there with your beautiful wife and other beautiful women that are so beautiful that you probably just be staring at them for years, so.
Nice. Jabril, anything different for you?
No, I think all of that sounds great. I want to be there. The way I explain heaven to people, and we talk about, I say heaven is going to be the dopest after party where all the coolest celebrities that you never heard of are going to be there. It's just going to be a good time, and everyone is going to live like the most lavish of lavish lifestyles, and it's just going to be dope. It's going to be a nice place to be, and it's going to be worth all of the stuff that we had to go through being here.
Absolutely.
That's cool.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of similarity there. When I try to describe heaven to people, I basically describe it as like, have you ever been with a group of people that are all like the nicest people you've ever met. And you're just like, wow, like this is amazing being with all these awesome people. But it's literally everyone you ever come in contact with is the nicest person that you've ever met. And everyone's like that. And it's sort of like, what if the world was filled with people that were trying their hardest to make everyone else as happy as possible?
Wow.
And that's basically what heaven is like. And our faith has a lot of this idea of things being provided for you. You know, you'll have a home and you'll have a community that loves you, and you'll always have enough food. But also we have this idea of you'll have uses, like you'll still get up and go to work, but you'll go to work because you're pumped, because it's what you were made to do. And you're so excited to do it.
Not just what you have to do.
Not like, oh, got to get there by 8, but like get out of bed and be like, oh man, like the most energized you've ever been to give back to the world is going to be every day.
Isn't that dope that same concept we can try and have here? Because in Islam, we also have the notion of heaven on earth as well. Like there's a specific prayer we pray where it's like, oh God, bless me with the good in this world and the next. So like, it's dope if we can have that same enthusiasm, that same, that same want of having that type of life here. Right. And
I mean, we believe that as well. Like you create heaven now.
Mm-hmm.
Heaven begins now.
Funny how similar, how much similarities there are between, you know.
Well, that's the beauty, man. Like I don't know. That's why we love having like you guys on or other people on. Just because there's so much beauty in the similarity, and there's so much dissonance and distraction with things that aren't similar. You know. I think we have more to gain than we do to lose by being on the same page.
100%.
Cool, man. I don't know, Richard. Do you have any more questions? I feel like we should probably wrap up, but.
Yeah, we should wrap up. I'm having a blast, so I can have a million more questions.
I do want to know, like, do you guys have any questions about us or Christianity? Do you have any like bad experiences with Christianity or anything like that?
I do want to tell you a story because, like, just like I've grown up with a lot of Christians, and I found myself being close friends with Catholics. You know, because I feel like just their belief kind of goes the way I practice kind of like can be very disciplined. But so I was working at my job, and one of my great friends is Catholic. His name is JP. He goes to mass every year, right? And when Ramadan comes around, he fasts with me to just do the experience. And then one time he's like, "Mo, do you want to come with me to mass?" Because he always asks everybody at the job who's Catholic and Christian, but they're like, So for 4 years, like, or 3 years, nobody's ever went with him. I was like, bro, I'll go with you.
That's dope.
So I go in there. So I go with him, and I'm experienced. It was such a great time. Met his community, met his people. Everything was on point. And then when they were practicing, I was just sitting in the back. And he like, would you like to participate? I was like, man, I'm all about learning. I told him the only thing that I'm not going to do is get the, the chocolate clay and just put on my forehead. You know, I said everything else, I'll participate, you know. And then when I came back, I was telling you about the office. How it was such a great experience. Like, oh man, I wish I would have gone. I was like, yo, you guys.
You had 4 years of chances.
It was like, you know, this is like what y'all supposed to do, you know. And it was crazy. Even like in your own like religion, you have those differences, but that's different between somebody that believes and practices and believes. So I'm very familiar with the Christian, which is the Catholic, just because all my friends were. I had a lot of friends back in high school and in college, so we were immersed in all of it, you know.
Yeah.
So how do you guys? I guess the question I have is more specific. What do you guys say? And this might be a little bit off cuff. What do you guys say when people say that, hey, God, kind of communicating with God is supposed to be like a one-on-one interaction, and like nobody kind of being in between? How do you guys kind of feel about that? And what's the kind of, do you guys get those questions, and what's the response?
So our branch of Christianity is called New Church. It's a pretty small branch of Christianity. We have a big emphasis on one God. We're not big into saints. We don't. We're Trinitarian in the concept of, we believe that like the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit idea is 3 different ways of talking about one God,
like
not three different people. It's like how I have a soul, a body, and my actions in the world. That's like the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost is the God's soul, God's body, and God's action. So big idea of one God, and having a personal relationship. Not like I pray to Mary who talks to God, or I pray to Saint whoever who talks to God.
Yeah.
And we're big on people reading the Bible for themselves, like doing their, like, you don't need someone to interpret it for you all the time. Like, that's supplemental. That's great to like go to church and that sort of thing is awesome, but you don't always need that to go to heaven or whatever. And I'll be honest, for myself, that's one thing I struggle with, is having that personal relationship with God. Like a lot of the times when I do pray, it's hard for me to feel like I'm actually connecting. And that's just like been a lifelong struggle with me, to feel like God's listening, God's hearing and talking to me, and I'm talking, like, that's been a struggle for me, but it's something I do try to do.
Yeah. Have you guys ever
Bye, Muhammad.
Played for something?
Played
flat
for
out. Prayed for something flat out, and you get it, and you have those moments of just like, all right, you're there. No question. You're there.
I feel like for me, so much of the time, the you're there moments are when I pray for something and then I don't get it. And then I look back and I'm like, what a dumbass. Like, that's not what I needed at all. Like, for me, he knew the whole time. Okay. My bad. Like a big one for me was, right as I started having like my big crisis of faith, when I was in college, when I was like, oh, God's not real. Heaven's a sham. Nothing matters. During that time is when I met my now wife.
Okay.
And she also was like, yeah, I kind of think that most religion is a sham. Like maybe like more Eastern meditation kind of philosophy might be good, but like Christianity's definitely just like bull. Like it's nothing.
Malarkey.
And so both of us were in this, as far as our lives are concerned, relatively brief period of being like, maybe this is all garbage. And so both of us came back to faith together.
Wow.
And it was just an extremely powerful thing for each of us as individuals and for our relationship. And also, like, if I hadn't been in a crisis of faith, I would have been someone getting a religion degree, planning to be a minister. And on the third date, when she was like, yeah, I think Christianity is a sham, I would have been like, well, this isn't going to work. So I look back and I'm like, first of all, what that did for me in cementing me in my faith was amazing. And the timing of that for my relationship with my wife when we were dating was more than just a coincidence.
Yeah.
And in the moment, there were plenty of times that I prayed like this doubt, this struggle is so uncomfortable. Just like, give me answers, like give me proof. Like I need proof. And I got nothing. And I was like, see, God's not real. But then that slow working within me that brought me back to it was so much more powerful than any vision could have possibly been.
That's interesting. I like, so the story of Moses, there's a point where he says, God, like, I need proof. You got to show me something. Yeah. And Moses is the only prophet where God blatantly like revealed himself, like showed himself to a prophet. It didn't happen for Muhammad, didn't happen for Jesus, didn't happen for anybody except for Moses. Like he crumbled a mountain before his very eyes, just boom. And I see that same story like with you, where you're asking, like, show me a sign. And he crumbled all those, suspicions you had, and look where you at now. That's sick. That's sick. I love that.
For me, I've always been perfect. So
go ahead.
No,
I want to ask another question. It's more on the funnier side. In the Christian community with the youth, is everybody so eager to get married, just like the Muslim community?
Oh my God!
Because we get it done pretty quick.
Well,
pretty quick.
yeah,
2
Richard's
months.
like, I got that ring, baby.
Boom.
Well, I wanted to first back up and just about the prayer thing. I just want to real quick say that I feel like I experienced God the most in sort of the unexpected things or the little things, the simple things. Like that's where I try to appreciate God because I have trouble stopping to smell the roses a lot of the time. So like if I'm biking along and there's just beautiful sunset, like that reinforces God to me. Like the world doesn't have to be beautiful. Like me being in the right place at the right time. Like I one time found a little girl who there had just been an Amber Alert sent out. And like I was just walking back and saw this like 2-year-old girl like walking along. I'm like, what the heck? And I was right by a firehouse. I took her in and she was safe. And I was just happened to be in the right place at the right time. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Oh, and that was the girl?
Yeah, that was the girl.
Oh.
And so they're just like little moments like that where I didn't ask for it, but I feel like God put me in the right place at the right time to be the vessel of good. And I'm so moved by those kind of experiences to be able to be the kind of person I want to be in those moments. So serious, close that on that. Funny side, totally pressure to get married. That's definitely a reality. So I'm 26. I'm not married yet. Richard, you got married when you were, what, 25?
25, I guess.
But there are children getting married up in here. People are like 19 getting engaged. I'm like, calm down. Let's live your life a little bit.
That's what I'm saying.
Because like
I feel like half of the young people are like, boom, I got married right out of high school. And half of the people are like, what the hell is going on?
Oh, yo, forget that mess. I'm good.
And I definitely have a lot of.
I fell right in the middle.
Yeah, you're in a good
25.
spot. You're in a good spot.
That's decent.
My wife is like 3.5 years younger than me though, so she was like not even 22 yet when she got married. So that's pretty quick.
Yeah.
In her defense, she told me not to propose, and I was like, what if I did? And she said yes, so that's on her.
I just think marriage is such a beautiful and important thing, and it needs to be treated with the reverence that it deserves. Like, I just don't want to be casual about it at all because I think it's
100%. Yeah, I'm on the same wave as you, where it's like too many people get married because they say that marriage is half our deen. It's a saying of the prophet, and
we have a similar sort of thing.
Yeah, it's like it's half your deen. And I understand. Well, Muhammad just got married, right? And
congrats!
Thank you.
That's dope.
Yeah, I'm not, but but it's one of those things where it's like you said, Luke, like I'm not going to be casual about it. Not saying if you marry, you are
right.
But yeah, I want to do some living and do some things to reinforce myself. Like, hey, I've done what I want to do, and now I feel like I want to be able to take care of and be responsible for someone and do those things. And I know within our community, a lot of the things that come with marriage aren't taught about at all. So a lot of people are like jumping in. And with you two being married, do you guys feel like the religious community prepared you guys for the responsibilities associated with marriage?
Good question. Again, I'm not married, so that's.
Well, I was talking to Muhammad and Richard. Sorry, they're both on this side of the screen. Yeah.
Muhammad, you want to take that first?
Yeah, all that I was told was that it's going to be a big responsibility, and then I was going to see the blessings, you know? And at first, I was just like, I see the responsibilities, but where are the blessings, you know? Because it's literally...
At first, you felt like that?
Because it's difficult work, because I've been talking to my wife for like 2 years, and we're totally different cultures. So cultures can clash, you know, and family dynamics play a big role when it comes to marriage and politics, even if you don't like to say it. So it's a lot of things that comes with marriage. Like you said, you're not marrying the person, you're marrying their family. So sometimes you have to find yourself being like a diplomat, a president, like a leader, like so many different hats you got to play as a man. And as a man, you have to lead your family, you have to lead your wife, even if you don't know what you're going to do next or what is to come, right? And when you're single, like we talked about earlier, if you're treating other people good, but you're treating yourself bad, you can do that when you're not single. Obviously, it's not the best thing, but when you're married, you always have to try to bring in the best for yourself that goes in to your wife and your home and potentially kids. So you're not taught all of that and how to be a true man, a complete man, a good man, and a God-fearing man. So no, the Moss does not prepare you. I think that's like a Grant Cardone 10X type of package.
Yeah,
that's what I would say.
I like what you were saying about when you're single, you can treat other people well and yourself badly, but you can't really do that once you're married. And one thing I love to say to my wife, when she is being self-deprecating, when she's putting herself down, I like to say, no one talks about my wife that way, or no one talks to my wife that way. And she's like, I'm allowed to. And I'm like, no, you're not. Because there is that connection that means you have to be a better you, not only for yourself now, but also for them. And in terms of preparation, I guess the first thing I'd say is jury's still out on that one. I've only been married for a year and a half. We'll see how prepared I feel.
Oh, you're the vet in here then.
Oh yeah.
2 months.
A year and a half. He's been married a month and a half.
2 months. Yeah, 2 months.
So we'll see how prepared I end up being. Ask me again 10 years from now, 20 years from now.
Our church also in specific has a belief that marriage lasts forever, like to eternity. Like you can be with your soulmate. It's not necessarily the person you marry on the earth, like tomorrow or whatever, but you're going to be with someone forever. And that I definitely, there are pros and cons about that in my mind. Like it definitely gives me more pause going into relationships and the thought of proposing or getting married, thinking that, this could be forever. Like, whew, that's a lot of pressure, baby. Let's be extra careful with that. So I think that's one thing about our specific faith too, that gives me hangups and pause for good and for bad.
Yeah. Cause I mean, you're like, I like you, but there's some baddies out here too.
Well, honestly, what plagues me is marriage, a good relationship is made, not given. But it's hard thinking like, man, there are maybe 3 billion women out there. Let's even round significantly down, 1 million people who might be compatible with me. How am I supposed to find the one person who's the best match out there? Like that's impossible.
But you're not supposed to find her. She's written for you, my friend. The screenplay of God.
But how am I supposed to know when she comes into my life?
You asking the wrong person.
A lot of people say like a lot of people say you'll know when you know.
I hate that.
Before I met my current wife, I honestly thought Jabril was gonna be my soulmate to the grave. I was worried.
I was worried.
But over time, God puts that person in your life, and you do have to go through certain stuff.
So how did you know?
Well, because I knew because I met with other girls. I remember one of my coworkers, his name was Rio, very smart guy. He's like, all women come with the same thing that God gave them, just like all men do. But you got to find the one that you're willing to be most patient with, and as you can see that you can build, and somebody that has potential. So, after just a little bit of IG creeping, you know what I mean? I was able to not see that, but had a good idea, and then just meeting up with her and having conversations. Like you can kind of tell, you can get to know somebody really quickly once you cut out all the fat and stop bullshitting and know like, hey, I'm trying to get married. I'm not really playing like these little games, So
is she Muslim as well?
Yeah, she is a Muslim. I'm from Egypt. She's from Sudan. So I'm 28 and I just got married. So yeah, like on the later side, I guess.
I mean, it's all relative.
For other people, it's all relative. So yeah.
Yeah, but that thing about family dynamic is also such a real one, and that's been interesting with my wife and I, and definitely I feel like her family lived in the town that we went to college in, so I got to see them much more often. And with my family, it was always like we traveled for holidays to see my family. And also my family, love them to death, are more intense than my wife's family. The first holiday she spent with my family was on Thanksgiving, and in the middle of the day, my brothers and I all got into an argument that turned into a yelling match. And we were not angry at each other at all. We were just totally playing and arguing because we like to just bullshit each other and argue about nothing because it's fun. But not how she grew up at all. So she was very much like, oh my gosh, like everyone's yelling at each other. This is so stressful. And then it became like, still joking, a physical wrestling match. And
your brother took off his shirt.
My brother ripped off his shirt and threw it. And it happened to hit my girlfriend at the time, wife now, right in the face. And she was like, I'm going to be outside for a bit, and stepped outside.
Yo, that is straight out of a movie, man. That is hilarious.
And I remember my family being like, where'd Sonia go? Like, what's wrong? And I was like, what do you mean what's wrong? We were all screaming, and then she got hit in the face.
Your brother's sweaty, shirtless. I don't know what her problem is.
So family dynamics are sometimes stressful in the moment, and I found always hilarious in hindsight.
Wow.
So, just got to wait it out, hopefully.
Any other questions you guys have about us as Christians or our faith or anything like that?
I do have this. My last question is,
man.
what has been the hardest thing for you guys to, I guess, answer for people of other faiths that ask you? Jumbo question, but when people from other faith ask you questions about Christianity, what is the hardest part to actually explain?
That's a good question. I want to think about it. Richard, you jump in if you have an answer, but I'm going to think.
So from other faiths, it totally depends. So actually, so our branch of Christianity believes in the writings of this guy named Emanuel Swedenborg, who was a philosopher and then a revelator, a prophet, basically, who wrote what God said. And sort of like you guys with Muhammad and all the other prophets, we always get the question like, oh, do you worship Swedenborg? And we're like, no, like he was just a guy that God told to tell us stuff. He was a servant. So that's a big one for people of being like, so you're like a weird cult that worships this guy, right? And I'm like, no, I promise we're not. Like, we just aren't. So that's a big one, especially with other Christians. And for non-religious people, I think it's often either the philosophical, like how can you know type of questions. And our theology does a lot of addressing of big philosophical questions. But at the end of the day, there's always going to be that prove it factor that you can't, right? Because it's faith. And that's a big one. And then just for people, modern questions, like questions about origins of sexualities and even the questions of like, why do bad things happen to good people? Like why is the world the way it is? Why does it function the way it is now for us if there's an all-loving God? And I, from my experience, when people ask those questions, they are rarely looking for an intellectual answer. They're looking for comfort. Because, I can say, well, it's important for God to leave us in freedom. And if he solved all our problems for us, we would never grow spiritually. And we would just be little puppets of God, not independent people that decided to live a pious or good life. And I can say all these theological ideas, but at the end of the day, usually what people want to hear is, like, that isn't fair. Like, that does suck that bad things happened and God didn't want that for you, but God is here with you, trying to make the best out of what is just a shit situation.
Good point.
Good point.
I think for me, kind of a two-part answer. One is I've never been good with bigger, vague questions. So if someone approaches me from any religious background, they're like, "Why do you believe?" I'm like, I don't know, because like it's hard for me to answer something so big in a thoughtful and concrete, nuanced way. So I struggle with that one. But most specifically, I think I'm self-conscious about people having assumptions about my idea of salvation, because Christianity in general sort of has this broad idea, and I think people expect a more evangelical answer about salvation with Christians of like, oh, well, you're Christian. You believe that you just need to say Jesus Christ is God and you're going to heaven. And I very much don't believe that, and that's not our branch's idea of how to get to heaven. And so I'm very self-conscious of people labeling me with that, because it's just very antithetical to how I see living a good life and how God and heaven actually works. Like, I think you need to believe good things and be the best person you can be by your set of ideas, and make sure your faith and your actions are in tandem to being the person you want to be that creates your future and afterlife. And I like all my answers and ideas about that, but it's not often there's not often time to get in the space to have that conversation with people. So I worry about the assumptions of other Christians about me, of people who aren't religious about that sort of idea, because it's not what I believe. So that's sort of where it is for me.
Got you. Well, that's why you have a podcast, my friend.
Exactly. Got to flesh it all out.
Yeah, I've had awkward interactions with people that are Christian and come up and start talking to me, and I'm like, yeah, I'm Christian, and they say something, and then all of a sudden it becomes like a weird derogatory thing about other faith practices and how like, oh, isn't it great to be saved? And I'm like, like, I would say that kind of behavior isn't Christian, my guy. Like,
yeah, it looks like you still need some saving to do, my friend. Yeah.
Not a one and done.
Like
You asked for a funny story. Going right off of that, Richard, when I was 13, my middle school used to be down the street from my house. So me and my best friend, we would walk from school and go to the shopping center before we would head home. And on the shopping center, it was like there was a couple churches, and it seemed like no one was ever there, but there was someone there that day. And this lady comes out, and you can like hear the music in the church, and we're just going to Family Dollar and pick up some cookies or something. And she's like, "Hey, young men, do y'all believe that Jesus Christ is your Lord and Savior and your only salvation to get into heaven?" And my friend, I think he was like Baptist, and me, I'm Muslim. So I turned, I was like, "Oh, no, I believe in Jesus, but I'm Muslim." And she goes, "Oh, Lord have mercy." And she the pure disgust on her face. She was just like, "Oh, Jesus to save you," something like that, and just runs off.
My God.
And me and him were dying. Like, I got that stuff so much growing up.
Yeah.
And it just became funny to me more than anything, because I know the religion pretty well. So yeah, that was probably the funniest Christian.
What was she thinking? Like, what was her purpose? If she's trying to evangelize right there, what a horrible method. Like, she should have been exactly. Like, "Oh, let's come in, have a conversation."
Yeah.
What? Like, is she just looking for yes men out there? I don't know.
I think that's what a lot of people do. And you know what? I hope that she remembers that and she thinks about it. And she's like, "You know what? I was in the wrong with that."
At one point, I worked in a grocery store when I was in college, and my normal shift, the people on my normal shift was a devout Catholic, like had read everything every pope had ever written, like could recite the New Testament and the epistles, like basically by heart, like one of the most studied people I had ever met.
Dang.
And he was like 65 and worked in a grocery store because he just needed something to do. Yeah. And he was the other cashier with me, and our manager was a Protestant youth pastor. And so it was me getting a religion degree in my branch of Christianity, a retired Catholic guy and a Protestant youth pastor. And the three of us it was hysterical. Just like the three of us would be having a conversation like about heaven, and me and the Protestant guy would be like, you guys believe that about heaven? What? And then like, we'd be like, what? That's ridiculous. And then we start talking about like the Bible, and they'd be like, what? You think that about the New Testament? I'd be like, yeah. And they'd both be like, what's wrong with you? And like the three of us just always such good humored, like finding the ways that our denominations both agreed against another one. Like, oh my goodness, not that, but yes, what you're saying. That's and it was hysterical. Just the three of us always. And like those poor customers coming through. well, I'm like, how can you possibly believe in three persons but one God?
And they're like,
sir,
it's
my
most
Cheerios. Ridiculous. And they're like, I'm just trying to check out. Like it's 8 p.m. like, I've got ice cream in the car, please.
You're like, yeah, whatever. That's wild.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, it's a couple hours here, so we should probably close the books.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Now this has been great, and we appreciate you guys being patient with us, and very happy we were able to actually record. At first, I was like, they're gonna hate us. So, but no, this has been great, guys.
Oh no, you guys are great too. I'm glad that you're doing what you're doing. I think I definitely support your message and your voice, and wish you all the success. And it's been great hanging out with you. I wish you guys lived up near where we are. We could chill sometime. COVID allowing.
Are both you guys in Michigan?
No, Richard is. I'm out north of Philly.
Okay, yeah, we're not far out from there. We've been to Philly a few times. So if we're ever around the way, if we're ever back in, we were just in Detroit. I was in Detroit in February, but we have Muslims up there that they're building like a community. So every now and then we travel up to Detroit and more specifically Inkster, Michigan. Mm-hmm. So we're over there and we'll hang out, and I got friends in Grand Rapids. So yeah, like if we're ever within the vicinity, then you guys will know.
Yeah, hit us up, definitely.
Awesome.
Sure.
We'll hang, great. COVID allowing. Awesome. Do you guys want to give a quick plug for your show before? I mean, we've mentioned it a couple of times, but give an official one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if y'all want to shoot us a message, you guys can hit us up on Instagram and Twitter. We're very active. We respond. That's Young and Muslim, YOUNGN, letter N, Muslim. And we're also on all the major streaming platforms that Jabril can probably tell you about.
Yeah, so we're on Spotify, we're on Apple iTunes, SoundCloud, anything that you can hit a play button and listen in, we're there. And then we're also on YouTube. So if you want to see our faces and you want to comment and get into all of that, make sure you subscribe. You can look up the Young and Muslim podcast, and you'll see us right there.
Awesome. Well, Jabril, Muhammad, thank you so much for taking your time to spend with us. It was great getting to know you.
This was fun. Fun. I appreciate you.
Well, let's do it again sometime.
Time.
Absolutely. Come and find us when we're old and Muslim.
Yeah, when are you gonna transition to that? That's a tough cutoff.
Never. I'll never get old.
I'll never die. All right, guys, take it easy. Have a good night.
Guys, have a good one.
All right, guys.
Peace out. Be good. Thank you guys so much for watching and or listening to the Spiritable podcast. If you want, go check us out on YouTube. We have our video version. You can like, comment, and subscribe. It helps us bump us up in the algorithm. Makes me very happy.
And if you want just the audio, you can find us anywhere you find a podcast, or you can email us directly if you want to get in touch with us at spiritablepodcast@gmail.com.
Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.
Hey. All right.
Boom.
I'm going to stop everything recording.
Yeah, they were super cool. I really, really liked them.